Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of True Crime with Kendall Rae. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you're new to the show, then welcome. I'm happy to have you here. And make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an upload from me. So, you guys, today we're getting into a case that is very, very fresh. And it's one that has been requested so many times. And there's finally enough information out there to cover it, I think. We're going to be talking about the very recent murders of Monique and Spencer Teppy. And you may have heard it being referred to as the Ohio couple murders or the murder of an Ohio dentist and his wife. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about it online for sure. And a lot of, in the early days of these cases, especially ones that get a lot of attention, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of gossip going around. So my goal today is to break down what we actually know so far, what is confirmed, and also keep it concise because we could sit here for a long time and go over every little piece and speculate on every little detail. And I don't think that's helpful. And I want this to be a consumable length for the average person who wants to know what's going on with this case. Just so you know, the day that I am recording this episode is January 16th. So this is everything that we know up until January 16th. As most of you guys know, I do have a bit of a lag between the time that I record episodes and the time that they go up. It's just the way that our process works and for the amount of editing that goes into my show. So that's why it is the way that it is. But I'm going to do my best to get you all the information that is up to date on the day that this makes it to you. Another important note I need to make before we jump in, everyone that I speak about today is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. It's very early on in this case. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Also, things may change as new information comes out. So yeah, just keep in mind, things are still developing here. Before I jump into the case, though, I do need to thank today's sponsor, Quince. And of course, it's because of their support and support from other sponsors and all of you, of course, that make it possible for us to continue funding grants through the Higher Hope Foundation. I could not be more excited for today's sponsor, Quince. Quince is truly one of my favorite brands, and I am so excited to finally be working with them on this channel. Everything that I own from Quince becomes an instant favorite in our house. Quince has all of the staples covered, from amazing cashmere sweaters and professional-grade cookware to European bedding that I swear to you guys gets better after every wash. I have been using a Quince duvet on my bed for years, and one of the best parts, everything that Quince offers is priced 50% less than what you'd find at similar brands. This is their Italian wool classic single-breasted coat. I have gotten so much use out of this jacket. I wore it in Paris, and I ended up just pairing it with a brown set of maternity leggings and a sports bra, and it looked so good. I looked chic enough to be walking around Paris. And I just can't believe the quality for the price. It makes no sense. And then this is also one of my Quince favorites. I've had this for about a year now, and I've gotten so much use out of it, yet the quality has maintained. It's their Italian leather buckle detail shoulder bag. I love this bag. I've gotten so many compliments on it, and they have it in multiple colors. Quince is seriously one of my favorite places to shop because at the end of the day, not only does everything look good, but it feels good. But the best part about Quince is I love that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, and they use premium fabrics and finishes. Go to quince.com/Kendall to get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Big thanks again to Quince. And with that, let's go ahead and get into this case, you guys. Buckle up. It is really upsetting and also very confusing. So I want to start out by telling you about Monique, or Mo, as she liked to be called. So she was born on October 14th, 1986 in Chicago, Illinois, to her parents Ignatius and Nerea. She had two siblings, Joseph and Amanda. And although she was born in Chicago, she was raised in Worthington, Ohio. And Ohio had always been home to Monique, and it's where so many of her best memories were. She grew up playing soccer, and throughout her life, she became really passionate about running, horses, reading, baking, and most of all, she was passionate about children. Monique graduated from Ohio State University with a master's in early childhood education, and it sounds like this was an obvious career choice for her. She was a super caring person, bubbly, just the type of person you would imagine working with kids. She was known for having a super big heart that was often shared with others. People say that her smile was bright, her laugh was just infectious, and that she was the type of friend that you would truly be lucky to have, which I think really comes across in photos of her. You know, when you just look at a picture of someone and you think, wow, they look nice. They look like someone I'd want to be around. That's the type of vibe I get from Monique. And obviously, I didn't know her, but I don't know, there's just something about her that seems so warm and inviting. And it was all of these amazing qualities about Monique that attracted Spencer Teppy to her. Now, Spencer was 2 years younger than Monique. He was born on December 9th, 1988, and Ohio was home to him as well. He and his sister were raised by his parents, Tim and Yvonne, in the city of Mason, which is just north and slightly east of Cincinnati. And like Monique, he also played soccer, but he also loved golf and really anything that led to some good, healthy competition. He also loved to speak Spanish, which was even one of his majors in college. In 2012, he got his bachelor's degree in biology and Spanish from Ohio State University. And in 2017, he graduated from Ohio State's College of Dentistry. Dentistry was another huge passion of his, hence his career. And my sort of impression of him, based on what I've been able to gather about him, which isn't that much, of course, but it seemed like Spencer really was someone who loved to be of service to others, help others in need. And this was something I loved to hear about him. Okay, so Spencer was a big brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program of Central Ohio. And he had been a mentor to one kid from the time that this boy was in first grade all the way through college. The Big Brothers Big Sisters program is something that I think is extremely valuable to society. It's something that I'm hoping I have time to do at some point in my life. I have always been so interested in it. And a close friend of mine growing up was a big brother, and I used to play with the little boy he was a big brother to, and I just saw the impact. And so I know how much work goes into this program, how much true dedication, and what, a difference it can make in someone's life. And I found this clip on the program's YouTube page, and it seriously, God, made me choke up the first time I watched it. It's just so hard to watch now. But Spencer seemed to so deeply care about Hans, the boy that he mentored, and getting a glimpse at what that meant for both of them, it's just really special to see.
Sometimes, people have siblings and family at home that support them, but sometimes they need someone else, someone experienced, and they're there for you when you need them.
I thought it was the perfect opportunity to have a role model, male, an adult outside the house that he can share stuff if he needed to. Because a lot of times I feel that kids are not comfortable about talking some of the stuff at home.
Hans has been the easiest match I could have possibly imagined. Since day one, I've known him as a diligent student. He's been focused. He's always been really respectful, kind.
He's a really nice guy. He has a really laid back and lighthearted attitude, but when I need advice, he's always there for me.
He's been the perfect model for Hans. He is being that person that if I doubt on something, I will call him.
I've just tried to remain a role model as best as I can and demonstrate the importance of an education and just really kind of encourage him to pursue more and to do more.
When Hans was recommended for skipping 7th grade, first thing I did was call Spencer. Spencer, what do you think? He's like, we're not going to keep him bored. He's going up. You know him. He can do it. He's mature. I'm like, okay. So I called the next day the teacher and I said, okay, he can go. So up to that point is how much I trust Spencer.
My favorite thing about being a big has been how I've become part of his family and he's become part of mine. And it's gotten to a point now where his extended family comes into town from North Carolina or from California, and we all assemble, get together, and break bread together, and it's the most fun thing in the world. Just anyone can be a good big brother, big sister. You just have to remain committed, just be willing to show up and be available and be willing to listen. He's really almost been a role model for me in return, so it's been a really, really nice experience.
And Monique also ended up getting involved with Hans and his family over the years. And yeah, I think it says so much about who they were. And I don't know exactly what year, but the two of them met online, and in December of 2020, they got married in an intimate family ceremony, very low key, and they actually got married in their house. And a bunch of the photos that are circulating right now of the two of them come from that day. Monique's brother-in-law, Rob, was actually the one who photographed and videoed the whole wedding, and man, did he really capture their love. I'll have it linked below if you want to check it out for yourself, because I think it really tells you a lot about the two of them and how much they loved each other, which is beautiful to see. Sources say that Spencer was Monique's biggest supporter and that he would always talk about how much he loved, admired her, and both of them were honestly very admired by their friends and family as well. It's been said that they were really sort of the focal point of their social circle, and everyone just loved them. And they loved their friends and family too. They loved hosting people for get-togethers and parties. And everyone just says that they were a very special couple. Even after 5 years of marriage, people say they still acted like newlyweds. Not to mention, they were said to be amazing parents as well. They had one daughter who was 4 and a son who was 17 months old. And after they were born, Monique became a stay-at-home mom to look after them more closely. And as for Spencer, he continued working as a dentist, specifically at a practice called Athens Dental Depot in Athens, Ohio. And mind you, they were living in a house in a neighborhood just north of downtown Columbus. And this was a 75-mile commute for him, which, holy shit, that is a lot. And that is a lot of dedication on his part. And despite having to make this really long commute every single workday, he was known to be incredibly reliable. So much so that on December 30th, 2025, very recently, when he did not show up for work, the alarm bells immediately went off. At 8:58 a.m., so very early in the day, the first of several 911 calls was placed, and it was placed by Spencer's boss, who was on vacation at the time, and I'm about to play it for you.
I would like to ask for a wellness check on an individual at their home. Well, I'm currently in the state of Florida. I'm on vacation, but this individual, Spencer, works with me, and he did not show up to work this morning, and we cannot get a hold of him or his family.
He didn't show up to work?
Correct.
Okay. Does he have medical problems or?
No, and he's been reliable, and we cannot get in touch with him, his wife, his family, anybody that lives in that house.
Okay. So
There's
you're
2
in
kids in the home. I'm in Florida. I own the business. I was informed by my employees that he was not at work, and he runs the office. Have you guys received anything else, like calls about him or like a car accident or anything like that?
No, sometimes people just don't show up to work. I mean, maybe he's sick, I don't know.
Now, clearly, that dispatcher, they did not think anything serious was going on, that anything serious could be going on, which is really frustrating. And yeah, to some degree, people are late for work, people don't show up, people ditch the day. But this was so different. I mean, Spencer is a dentist. He has a very serious job, and he's known for being very reliable. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter any of the details. They called because they were concerned, and it is her job to make sure that they get help, not to make a judgment call or to sound so judgmental over the phone. It's really frustrating. Either way, the fact of the matter is he, along with Spencer's other coworkers, knew that it would have to take something serious for him to just not show up and not tell anyone. Anyway, despite being brushed off by the initial dispatcher, Dr. Val Rose, his boss, really pushed for them to go ahead and send someone out to Spencer's house for a welfare check anyway. And listen to how crazy this is, though. Columbus PD sent an officer out to perform a welfare check, but he went to the wrong house. At 9:22 a.m., an officer attempted to perform a welfare check at 1417 Summit Street in Columbus, but Spencer and Monique lived 2 blocks away at 1411 North 4th Street. And I have no idea where this communication happened, but regardless of whose fault, the bottom line is that nobody actually went to the Teppy's house. And because of that, obviously nothing stood out to that officer. So after knocking on the front and back door without seeing anything strange, he just left. His boss and coworkers, who were concerned about about Spencer, though, didn't know that the officer went to the wrong house. However, the, good news here, if you can even call it that, it feels weird to call it that, is that they decided they weren't waiting around to hear from the police. And if they had, they would have been told inaccurately that everything was fine. And it may have taken longer to find Spencer and Monique. Plus, and this might sound confusing at this point, but their kids would have been stuck in that house for, I don't even want to think about how long. But long story short, some of the concerned people ended up going to the Teppy's house themselves to see what was going on. And when they arrived, another 911 call was placed. Now, I'm still waiting for a bit more clarification, confirmation on who exactly that specific call came from, but it was placed pretty shortly after the first one at 9:56 a.m. Now, some sources say it was a friend who made this call. Some sources are saying it was a colleague. Not totally sure at this point, but either way, you'll hear that he's outside of the house and he says he thinks he hears one of the kids inside yelling. So take a listen.
Okay, 1411.
1411, yep.
Okay, what's the emergency there? Police or medical?
Maybe both, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of doing the
We already
wellness.
had a call out there. They knocked on the front door and back door multiple times, and there was no answer.
Yeah, no answer. I can hear kids inside, and I swear I think I heard one yell, but we can't get in. At this point, I don't know if I need to break the door in or just get in the house or what. So.
Okay, were you out there when the police was out there?
I wasn't. I just got here about 5 minutes ago.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll send them back out to you.
And then just 2 minutes later at 9:58 a.m., it's been reported that another call came through expressing a similar concern. But like you just heard in the previous call, the dispatcher said that an officer was already being sent to the house. However, before police got there, an absolutely horrific discovery was made at 10:03 a.m. So only 5 minutes after that last call, Spencer and Monique's friend, Alex Diddy, called 911 to report that there was a body in the house.
911, what's location of your emergency?
1411 North 4th.
Okay, 1411 North 4th. We've got several calls on that. What's changed since the last person I talked to?
There's a body.
There's a body inside?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me get you on the line with the medic, okay? Stay on the line.
Oh my God.
What is the address of your emergency?
1411 North 4th.
Okay, 1411?
Yeah.
All right, the house apartment?
House.
All right, let me guess, what's going on there?
There's a body. Our friend wasn't answering his phone. We just did a wellness check. We just came here, and he appears dead.
Okay.
There's blood. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed, and there's blood. I can't get closer to see more than that.
Okay, so you can tell he's obviously not breathing or anything?
Yeah.
Is it like, huddle, you know, does he look like...
It doesn't look puddled. I can't look.
Okay, all right, I understand. Okay, and then when was the last time somebody spoke to him?
Yesterday, I suppose.
Yesterday? Okay.
Yeah.
How old is he?
37.
37, okay. Is he like a drug user or anything like that?
No.
Okay, all right, just that's a really young age.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, all right, we're on our way.
Okay, sir, can you stay on the line for a minute, and can you give me your name?
Alex Diddy.
I'm sorry?
Alex Diddy.
Alex, how do you spell your last name?
DITTY.
Now, if it wasn't obvious, and there was some confusion about this at first, but Alex was physically in their house. He went up to the second floor, and that is how he was able to see a body. But it's important to note that when he was in there, he only saw Spencer. And we do know that Monique was there as well. And tragically, both victims were found with gunshot wounds. It also wasn't believed to be a murder-suicide because investigators were unable to find the gun. Now, as for their wounds, it was initially reported that Spencer was shot multiple times and that Monique was found with a single gunshot wound to her chest. And based on deductive reasoning, people believe that Spencer was shot twice. And I say that because 3 9mm shell casings were found at the scene. And if we know Monique was shot once, that leaves 2 for Spencer. And I just cannot even begin to imagine how devastating that scene was for anyone to see, let alone a friend to have to walk in on. And oh my God, thinking about the fact that a 4-year-old and a 17-month-old, so like a 1.5-year-old baby, was in the house during this and the entire time until someone discovered their bodies, it just makes me feel sick. And thankfully, neither of them were harmed physically, but the emotional damage that is going to do, I don't know what the 4-year-old witnessed. I'll go over what we do know in a second, but what they're going to have to process when they do get to an age where they're old enough to understand what they went through and what happened to their parents while they were there, it is just, I don't even know what the right words are. It is sickening. It's inhumane. It's just horrific. It does sound like they were shielded from seeing what happened though, or at least the aftermath. I think all of it, hopefully, and I'm grateful for that. You can actually hear it in this 911 call. But Alex says, come downstairs. And I believe he managed to get them out without seeing their parents. And a family member has also confirmed that they don't think the children witnessed the murders either. They were described as, quote, happy and unaware, which is just a huge relief to hear. There's more about the kids that I want to talk about, but first I want to get into what the investigation has looked like up until now. So right off the bat, very, very little information was being said publicly by law enforcement, which, is pretty typical for a case like this. But we basically knew that both victims died from gunshot wounds, that 3 shell casings were found, and that the children and the family dog as well were unharmed. And very importantly, that there was no sign of forced entry. That is obviously huge to this case and remains to be a very big unanswered question at this point in time, but I'll get to that. But anyway, with this information and this horrific scene playing out, the public, specifically that community, were left pretty much spiraling, rightfully so. They didn't know if this was just some random attack or if this was committed by someone who knew the victims, if this was personal. People who live in the neighborhood have said that historically, that area hadn't always been the safest, but in recent years, safety was improving. But now people were afraid, especially because police were being so tight-lipped. That being said, the Columbus Police Department was and is actively working on the case and seeking the public's help. On January 2nd, they asked people to please come forward with any information and specifically with any home security videos that they might have from the night of the 30th between 12 a.m. and 9 a.m. And then I thought this was pretty cool. I don't know how common this is. I haven't seen this personally being done yet. Really, really smart. But they put out a QR code that people could scan and upload any evidence that their home security cameras may have captured. And it turns out that a ton of neighbors did, in fact, have cameras, and a lot of them were working. So for the next few days, the police received a bunch of valuable footage. However, they weren't publicly sharing that they had a ton of footage, and that only sort of added to the fear that this case wasn't being solved. And this happens a lot where, the police can't give out information yet, otherwise it'll compromise the investigation, but that rightfully leaves the community feeling scared and filling in the blanks or feeling like, well, if they're not telling us anything, they don't have anything. And I imagine that nobody felt this sense of, will there be justice? Will we get answers? Will this be solved? More than Spencer and Monique's family, right? Now, Rob, the brother-in-law that I mentioned earlier, has really become a spokesperson for their family and provided a lot of the media and information. And he shared a statement on behalf of everyone calling their deaths tragic and senseless. It reads in part, "Together, Spencer and Monique shared a beautiful, strong, and deeply happy relationship. They loved to travel, to laugh, to build a life rooted in love. They were proud parents of 2 beautiful children and their beloved golden doodle, and they created a home filled with warmth, happiness, and connection. We are heartbroken beyond words. While no outcome can ever undo this loss, our family is committed to seeing this tragedy fully and fairly brought to justice and to honoring Spencer and Monique by protecting the future of the children they loved so deeply. Rob has also said that their entire family has really struggled with a way to explain this to the kids. I mean, obviously their 17-month-old won't be able to understand, but their 4-year-old certainly will be able to. He says that she's just a ball of energy. She's inquisitive and intuitive enough to understand that something has happened. I mean, my daughter's almost 3.5, and it's scary to even say something like that, but she would understand that something had happened and she would want answers and she would want them explained. I will say it's clear to me that this is an amazing family, and the kids, at the end of the day, they're in really great hands. So even if there's a small silver lining here, it is definitely that. I know that they're going to be shown love for the rest of their lives by relatives who will forever tell them stories about how incredible their parents were, but still, it obviously will never be the same as it once was, and it's really painful to think about. And it's especially painful to think about the fact that these murders were personal, and right from the jump, they knew that they were personal, or at least they had a very strong suspicion. And I'll speak more about that in a bit. But yeah, they suspected right from the beginning that this was done by someone who knew them. And police believe that that person just so happened to be captured on someone's outdoor home security camera that night. On January 5th, the police released a Nest camera video that showed a man walking in the alleyway behind the Teppy's house between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. on the night that they were murdered. And it was said that this individual was being sought out as a person of interest, but it was not said that they were an official suspect. So if you're an audio listener only, this footage shows a man wearing a dark hoodie and light pants, walking with his hood up and his head down, and he definitely looks sus. And early on, people questioned who it could be. You know, it was so cold out, people thought maybe this was just a guy walking home from the bar or something, keeping his head down to stay warm, something like that. But as more time went on, it was believed that this was their killer. But when this footage was first released, law enforcement didn't say much else about it at the time. That is until January 8th, when the chief of police, Elaine Bryant, sat down for an interview with some local stations.
Obviously, this is a national news case. Our detectives work diligently to close every single case to bring justice to every single family. In this case in particular, what we do know is that obviously we received a call for a well-being check related to the two victims. There was an officer that was dispatched to go to that well-being check. Unfortunately, he did respond to the wrong location. And in him believing that he was at the right location, he did everything that he was supposed to do. We know that people are concerned, and we know that people have a lot of questions. What we're asking for is patience as it relates to this investigation. We want to make sure that we don't compromise the integrity of this investigation. So when we finally identify a suspect and it goes to trial or it goes to, we want to make sure that there's nothing that could cause this case to be dismissed or cause this case to be kicked. So we're looking at every single tip or every single information that comes in. We leave no stone unturned. We're investigating it, but there's only so much that we can share at this point. We released a video of the person of interest that we're looking for, the person that we know that was in the area at that time. We're asking the community, we're asking the public, if you have any information, if you think you know anything about this person, please contact us. So we are asking for tips. We have received numerous tips as it relates to this case, but we do not have at this moment a suspect that we have identified.
So like you heard her say, they have been investigating every single tip that comes in, and we know that a ton of video surveillance was submitted, as I said earlier, and a bunch of neighbors had working cameras, and there was even a crime camera on a utility pole a few hundred feet away from their home. The Teppys also had some type of doorbell camera, maybe Ring or another brand like it, on their front door. So unsure at this point if anything else was captured. I would be shocked if nothing else was captured. I'm sure a whole lot else was. But just to give you an idea, lots of cameras were around. Now, in terms of other possible leads, We do know that law enforcement was looking into 2 911 calls, one of which was from April of 2025. It came out that there was this 911 call from a woman, and it reportedly came from inside Spencer and Monique's house. There was a lot of confusion and discussion over this call. However, after listening to it, we now know that Monique's family has confirmed that it 100% was not her. You can take a listen.
Hi, this is 911. We just got a hang-up call. Is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're crying. Do you need police, paramedics, or anything?
No, I'm okay. I promise. I'm just emotional. I'm okay. I don't need nothing.
Well, can I ask what had you call 911 in the first place? Like, were you having an argument with
Me
somebody?
and my man got into it, but I'm okay. I promise.
Did anything ever get physical?
No.
You guys were just arguing, nobody hit each other?
Yes.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I have the information here. I can go ahead and tell the officers to cancel hitting over to your address there at 1411 North 4th Street.
Yes.
If anything changes, call us back.
Okay.
All right,
I'm sorry.
Since this has now been debunked, I don't want to spend too much time talking about it and confuse you all more than you probably are. But long story short, the chief of police has come out saying that this call just pinged dispatch to the wrong location. So it may have looked like she was in 1411 North 4th Street, but she was most likely at a house nearby. So it sounds like that call has nothing to do with this case after all, which, yeah, it was really throwing a wrench in things there for a minute. And I unfortunately don't know any other details about that call. I hope that person is okay. But on that note, we have been told that there is no history of 911 calls from the Teppy's address or even 911 calls related to the two of them, making all of this that much more confusing. And as for the second additional 911 call that has also been debunked at this point, 11 days before the murders, a neighbor had called 911 to report that someone was banging on their back door in the middle of the night. Super creepy. But there was a lot of talk and, discussion around maybe that's also connected to the case. You can have a listen to that call.
What's the emergency?
Somebody's knocking on my door. I think they're trying to get in. They're banging on my door.
Okay, someone's banging and knocking. Do you know who this is?
No.
Do you have a description of them?
No, I can't see any face upstairs.
Have you asked them what they want or if they need something?
No.
I can definitely see why people thought they might have been connected at the time without any more information. But yeah, it's not believed that the two are related anymore. And the reason for that is because this was no random attack. The attack on the Teppys. We now know so much more than we did just a couple of weeks ago or less. I mean, things have moved forward quite a bit here. A ton of information has come out recently. And based on what we know up until this point, it appears that this was a cold, calculated murder committed by, allegedly, Monique's ex-husband. And I have to say, as soon as this case came out, and I'm sure a lot of people had this thought initially, as soon as I started reading the details, I was thinking, ex-husband. It just screams that. And it is looking like that is the case, which is terrifying. So on Saturday, January 10th of 2026, Michael David McKee was arrested for the murders of Monique and Spencer Teppy. And on the 16th, he was indicted on 4 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of aggravated burglary. That's right. Her ex-husband, a literal surgeon, by the way, was arrested for this. And the more details I have learned, the more baffled and disgusted I become. Get this. It turns out Michael didn't even live remotely close to them when this happened. He lived in an apartment in Chicago, 325 miles away. And the medical center he worked at was even further. He worked as a vascular surgeon at OSF St. Anthony in Rockford, Illinois, which is another 100 miles or so away. And he was actually in Rockford when they made the arrest. He had just finished his shift and was, I guess, grabbing a bite to eat at Chick-fil-A. So I am sure you are wondering, if you have not been following this case, how did they initially connect her ex-husband, who was 450 miles away, to their murders? The surveillance footage. According to the arrest affidavit, Quote, during the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood video surveillance. This suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicides and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were able to identify this vehicle further and link it to Michael McKee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. Now, some people have taken this to mean that he was the owner of the car. That's kind of what I'm thinking, not totally sure, because others believe that possession might mean that it could have been a rental, although police have said it wasn't a rental, so pretty sure that's not the case. Maybe he borrowed it from someone. I'm not going to overthink it too much right now, though, because the important thing to note here is that he was the driver of the vehicle. They haven't shared all of the evidence that led them to this conclusion, but obviously they had enough to make an arrest. And my guess is they probably have a lot of evidence. I mean, the guy drove hundreds of miles. There's no way that he wasn't seen stopping for a bite to eat. Maybe he hit up another Chick-fil-A or was getting gas at some point. Maybe a toll camera along the way picked him up. I'm sure there's several videos or pictures of him along the way. And since his arrest, even more details have been shared about his alleged connection to this case. The chief of police shared on January 14th that after a search was conducted in Michael's apartment, they found several weapons, one of which was a preliminary match to the one used in the murders, and she's called this a domestic violence-related attack.
We believe at this point we have the person responsible for the murders of Monique and Spencer Teppy in custody, and that person is Michael McKee. This is still an active and ongoing investigation. Detectives are still going through evidence, tips, and videos. We can't speak to all the specific details related to this case, so we don't want to jeopardize the ultimate goal of conviction. But what we can say, this was a targeted attack. This was a domestic violence related attack. As we know, McKee is the ex-husband of Monique Teppy. We can say that we have the suspect's vehicle on neighborhood video surveillance arriving just before the murders and leaving shortly after. Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides. We can also say that multiple weapons were taken from the property of McKee, and there is a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
Something else that Chief Bryant said in this press conference that was super interesting, and it's something that everyone has been talking about. People really want to know. I certainly want to know, although I'm pretty sure, I don't know. I guess I don't totally know, but my guess is the answer is yes. However, this is the answer she had to give, which I think kind of says a lot. But when Chief Bryant was asked if there was any contact going on between Michael and Monique, she said that she couldn't comment for investigative purposes. I would be rather surprised if there was no contact, at least on Michael's end.
Can you tell us if McKee and Mrs. Teppy had any contact leading up to this incident, months, weeks?
There are some things that we can't share for investigative purposes, but what I can tell you again is that we didn't have any reports or anything linked to that specific location as it relates to the ex-husband and Monique Teppy.
She also wouldn't comment on a question about neighbors saying that they saw Michael in the neighborhood on other occasions.
Neighbors had said that they had seen McKee in the neighborhood and in front of the Teppy home days before the homicide. Can you confirm that?
At this time, we're unable to talk about specific information, but again, when we get additional information, we'll be more happy to share it.
And there's a lot of that in this case, which I do think tells us that investigators know a lot more than they're letting on, which makes total sense. I mean, I'm almost certain of it. But the weapon stuff, that was a huge finding. And actually, he was indicted earlier today when I'm recording this, January 16th, and we learned something else during that. According to an article from People, quote, those records also reveal that the weapon allegedly used to kill the couple was an automatic firearm or a gun silencer. So if he went out and got a gun silencer, talk about premeditation, right? I have just been refreshing my devices constantly because there's been a steady flow of information coming through. I do want to take some time to rewind, though, because the context for Michael and Monique's relationship obviously matters a lot here. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I don't have all the answers, but I'll tell you what we do know. So on paper, Michael seems like a guy who had a lot going for him. High school athlete, top 5 in his class, merit scholar, high-paying job as a vascular surgeon. And while we don't know how they met, we know that he and Monique got married in August of 2015. But after they were married, they were only together for a couple of months. It sounds like by March of 2016, so only like 7 months later, they were already separated. And then in May of 2017, she filed for divorce. So to recap that, they were only married and together for 7 months. Then they separated for a little over a year. And then within 6 weeks of filing for divorce in May of 2017, the divorce was finalized in June of 2017. There was a clerical error in June of 2025 where it showed that the case received a new hearing for September of 2025, but court officials have confirmed that it was, in fact, just an error. But these divorce papers don't provide a whole lot of insight into what led to their divorce in the first place. Obviously, there is a story there. I'm sure people who are close to them know, but it just says that the divorce was awarded to Monique on the grounds of incompatibility. When they officially split, Michael was awarded the house that they shared in Virginia, where he was still living, but by then, Monique was already back in Ohio. And I thought this was interesting too. Monique listed her wedding ring as separate property instead of marital property because she was the one who bought it. And in the documents, there's no mention of any domestic abuse or anything that would point to why he would want Monique and Spencer dead. Michael also has no criminal record outside of a few traffic violations. There was a standard mutual restraining order, but from what I learned, this is typical for the state of Ohio. However, with all that being said, and this is big. After Michael's arrest, Rob, the brother-in-law that I have mentioned already, has come forward and shed some very important light on the situation. It turns out, according to him, Michael was not only emotionally abusive towards Monique while they were together, which I think we all kind of figured, but he had even threatened her life multiple times in the past. In fact, Rob said that he tormented her and that she was willing to do anything to get out of there. It was so bad that he says the abuse changed her as a person. So super disturbing to hear all of this. I think it was kind of what everyone was thinking. It definitely makes things make a lot more sense. So take a listen to this clip from an interview that Rob gave.
She was terrified because he had threatened her life on multiple occasions when they were married.
Rob Misla sharing with NBC News what he says Monique Teppy told him about her brief and troubled marriage to McKee. His account backed up by a second family member.
So she wasn't shy about talking to people about traumatic experiences that she had with her ex and just how emotionally abusive he was to her. It affected her to this day.
Do you know if the abuse was ever physical?
I don't. If any of us had known that these threats were actually grounded in possibility, we all would have acted differently.
Even in Monique's wedding vows to Spencer, she talked about a wrong relationship and a waterfall of tears in her past, and she just seemed very upset by what that relationship was.
Spencer, what can I say? From day one, I knew you were something special. I had quite a journey to get to you. Countless bad bumble dates, wrong relationships, and waterfalls of tears. But it was worth every cringing second because it led me to you.
I also watched an interview with Anjanette Levy where she said that sources told her their marriage was not a good one. They said that Monique wasn't happy and that Michael wasn't kind to her, plus that she was the one who wanted out of the relationship and that he didn't want it to end. And again, all of this information coming out is along the lines of what so many of us were thinking was the case with Michael. Michael seems to be exactly the type of guy that we have seen time and time again that would go in and kill his ex-wife and her husband 10 years after they were together. And now with Rob coming forward, I feel like that's damn good confirmation. And it's also been confirmed that a private judge was hired to take care of their divorce case. And that could mean a few things. One big benefit of private judges is that they can expedite the case. They can make the whole process go a lot quicker. And I'm guessing that would mean that Monique needed it to happen quickly. And remember a little bit ago when I mentioned that their loved ones knew that this was personal right from the jump? Well, after Michael was arrested, her family came forward and said that they weren't surprised. They actually specifically said they expected it and that they were relieved when they heard the news that, Michael had been arrested. They must have just known that it was him as soon as they heard what happened to them. And I think that tells us, too, that there's a lot we don't know, a lot of back and forth, a lot of details that, will eventually come out with time that led up to all of this. But yeah, they said that they purposely didn't bring up Michael's name before his arrest because they didn't want to compromise the integrity of the investigation, which makes total sense. And I will say, when Rob was asked if he knew of any recent problems between Monique and Michael, he said there wasn't anything that the family was aware of. So maybe nothing had happened recently with him, but I'm sure they hadn't not heard from this guy in the last 10 years. I'm sure there had been something. And yeah, I guess a lot of people in her life knew that her ex was a bad guy. This was known information, and a lot of people likely told that to the police.
From the moment that this happened, it sounded like, from what I'm hearing from you, that you all thought immediately that this was Dr. McKee, that this was the guy. Did the family obviously say to law enforcement, to the detectives, that you've got to go talk to this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. And not just the family. I know friends, former coworkers of Monique, a lot of people were aware. And she wasn't, something that I really loved about Monique is she wasn't shy about talking about these experiences. I think kind of as just maybe a therapy. I can't imagine how many tips they got that were leading to him. But we were fairly certain because of just what Monique had told us stories wise of her. She never called him by name. She would just call him her ex-husband, and just how much of a monster he was, to be honest. And, she did everything she could to extricate herself from that situation. And, met Spencer and lived a very happy life.
Here's her friend Gina explaining more of her thoughts on that as well.
Do you mind sharing what she told you?
I didn't even know his name. She never said Michael. She said my ex. She said he was bad. She said abusive. I don't think she ever said physically. I don't know, but I do know she would say quite a bit. Very verbally, mentally abusive. And I don't think I ever got the impression that she was afraid of him. I got the impression that she hated him and that she knew things were bad there. And I don't think it ever fully left her mind, which I don't like to say that. And I don't think anyone thought that this was going to happen. I also don't think that she ever thought he would leave her alone for the rest of her life.
So I think a big question that a lot of people have is they divorced in 2017. It's been a long time. Had he been contacting her or following her in Columbus since then that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, and not that most people that I've talked to are aware of, but he was that, he's just that sneaky kind of sociopathic smart that I had heard a few rumors. I'm not sure I should say exactly what, but things that he had said to people surrounding her. But I hadn't heard any definite things.
Do you have any idea why now, after all of these years, that he's accused of doing this heinous act?
Sorry. I think it's just because everything that everything you see the wedding video, everything that people see is who they really were. And they were so perfect and they were so wonderful. And I think he couldn't live with it. I think he could not fathom her happiness. And she was so happy. Her kids were just playing with my kids and everything was perfect and wonderful. And you don't like to say perfect because nobody's perfect, but to the naked eye, they were.
We also very recently found out that a source who had worked with him at a hospital in Nevada said that when he was hired as a surgeon, he had, quote, basically no experience, and that it was reckless for the people around him to allow him to perform certain high-risk surgeries, which is terrifying to think about. Basically no experience. What? That source also said that Michael's, quote, downward spiral began after a, quote, series of alleged surgical mishaps. In fact, sources are now reporting that he even evaded a medical malpractice lawsuit for years before all of this. Here's a quote. McKee, a 39-year-old vascular surgeon, allegedly failed to train a physician's assistant, leading to a patient being injured during treatment and needing emergency surgery in 2023. According to a Las Vegas-based lawyer, Dan Laird. According to his lawyer, Michael duped him for 2 years by giving him fake addresses and questionable state-issued phone numbers. So it sounds like the dude just basically vanished into thin air to allegedly avoid taking responsibility. So as these things are starting to come out now, as we're starting to see a much clearer picture, this guy seems to be a monster, and the exact type of monster who would have done something like this. It is making sense in the most sick way. Personally, I feel that this is a case where someone's life was seemingly spiraling out of control, and maybe in his sick, twisted mind, he wanted revenge on the person or people that he blamed for his life going south. That's certainly what it seems like at this point. Again, that's just my speculation. And of course, tons of people have understandably pointed out that it seems strange that he would do something like this nearly a decade after the divorce. Of course, it is out of the norm. It is out of what we usually see in cases like this, but it does happen. And man, people are capable of holding grudges for a long time. I'm definitely curious to learn more about whether or not they had any recent communication, or even just in the past couple of years, maybe he had been stalking them, or maybe they had, ongoing issues with him. I would not be surprised. I know a friend of hers did say that she didn't think they were speaking. I'm sure investigators will get confirmation on that. But God, I just have so many questions at this point. I know you feel the same, I'm sure. But I know one thing that we are all super curious about right now is how he gained access to their home. Because like I said, there was no sign of forced entry, and that's been a huge topic of conversation. When you look at the Teppy's house, there are 2 doors in the front, the main door, and then these French doors that have a small railing in front of them. And then there was also a back door and a basement window. But in order to gain access to the back of the house, Michael would have either had to jump the fence, which is a pretty tall fence, definitely would be possible, but it looks to me like a privacy fence possibly. It's hard to tell exactly how tall in the pictures, but either that or he would have had to gain access through their detached garage. Now, of course, it's possible that one of these 3 doors and maybe a window was left unlocked. Even the most diligent of people can forget sometimes. It's very easy to do, especially when you wouldn't ever suspect that something like this could happen to you. I also learned that their doors had those keypad locks to get in, so maybe he somehow knew the code or was able to guess the code, potentially. There's also the possibility that he knocked on the door in the middle of the night and just forced his way in. But based on what we know, I highly doubt Spencer or Monique would have just opened the door for him, unless they didn't realize it was him, but I don't know. I'm just brainstorming here. So you can see why there's this big question mark at this point about how he got into the house. I will say, though, if they had a working Ring doorbell camera, that is probably going to have a ton of answers on it. In fact, they probably already have all of the answers to these questions that we are wondering. Plus, a lot of people have in-home security cameras, especially families with young kids. I mean, we have them all over our house. They may have even have had a baby monitor that was picking up noise at least or something. And then, of course, you can't forget about things like Apple Watches and Fitbits and Oura Rings. If either of them had any type of fitness monitoring device that they were wearing at the time, those devices can provide details such as when their heart rates may have been elevated, how long they were elevated for, and even what times their hearts stopped beating, which I know is really disturbing to think about, but investigators have already declared publicly that they died at 3:52 a.m., which is very specific. So that tells me they must have some type of proof of that, whether that's one of those devices or a security camera, something, or a combination of all of them. And speaking of electronics, you also have to wonder if Michael was dumb enough to bring his phone with him, which will have all kinds of data on it if he is. Or maybe like Brian Koberger, he turned it off at key times, which can tell us a lot too. I know that they're still processing a bunch of information and evidence at this point, and I know that these things can't happen overnight, so we just need to be patient. But I do feel very hopeful about this investigation and the direction that it's going in. I think, you could never say for certain, but I have a good feeling that there will be justice for Monique and Spencer. Now, as for the direction that Michael is going, he's got a long road ahead of him, and I guess he apparently plans to fight the charges. After his arrest, he was booked into the Winnebago County Jail. And on January 13th, he was in court for the first time where he waived his right to an extradition hearing. The hearing was very short, literally less than 2 minutes long, and the only thing that he said the entire time was his name. As for next steps, the court will work on getting him to Ohio, where he is facing trial. And according to that hearing, he is planning to plead not guilty. And the death penalty will be on the table too. So I'm very curious to learn more about what kind of sentence prosecutors will be seeking. Like I said, his charges were upgraded to aggravated murder with premeditation, but they haven't explicitly said what that premeditation was. Potentially, it could be the fact that he drove there. I mean, think about it, all the hours in the car, where he clearly had the intent to do what he did. It could also, of course, be something else. It could be a combination of several different things, some that we don't even know about yet. And I'm definitely interested to learn what, if anything, Michael has told investigators. Apparently, when they first spoke to him, he provided them with an alibi that did not hold up at all. So I'm guessing there could be a lot more. I'm pretty certain there's a lot more. It always does shock me when people like him, who are so smart on paper, end up being so dumb. I mean, so messy in the way they go about doing things, thinking they're actually going to get away with something like this and that he can just make up a fake alibi. But at the same time, maybe he wasn't all that smart, since it sounds like he barely was qualified to do his job and was terrible at it. I'm not complaining, of course. We love a dumb criminal because dumb criminals get caught. But apparently, his arrest did shock some people, though, like his neighbor, Sherilyn Kolerick, who happens to be a true crime author, has done a handful of interviews recently, and she said that she was shocked when she heard the news. She wasn't super close with him or anything, though, but they lived in this nice high-rise condo called the Pierre, which is right across from the Lincoln Park Zoo. And the kind of people that live there are not normally the kind of people that you would expect to be linked to anything like this. In fact, she said that she had spoken to him on several occasions, that he seemed like a pleasant person. I mean, doesn't sound like she knew him super well, though.
Sherilyn, how did you know Michael McKee?
I knew Michael McKee because here at the Pierre, we have a pool and we have a barbecue pit upstairs. And last summer, I met him. He was a new resident, and I introduced myself to him, and he was a very pleasant man. We didn't discuss about jobs or anything like that. I just told him about the building and how nice it was, and welcome to the Pierre. And the Air and Water Show is the best place to see it in the city because they come right in front of us. And it was just very nice, very pleasant. And we would pass each other, coming into the building and the elevator. And, I even forgot his name, I'll be honest. And I would say hi, and he'd say hi. And I'd say, wow, we're tired, long day. And he'd, yep, long day. We never had any other conversations after that. And I didn't know that he was the suspect until last Saturday. My doorman told me that Channel 7 was outside there, and he knew that I used to work for Channel 7. So I came out, and the reporter said that they've been trying to talk to other residents and everything about Michael McKee. And I says, well, I don't know if I know him or not. Show me a picture. And when he showed me the mugshot, I said, oh my God, I know this man. And matter of fact, I got a little chills now thinking about it. And it was a shock to me. And then the building put out a memo to all the residents that there's going to be police presence in the building because of one of the residents. I'm still news inside me, so I went upstairs, And Lord and behold, I saw a police officer sitting outside his door. He's got 24 hours, and he lives only 2 floors above me. And I took video of them. And then the next day, I went into my garage, and Lord and behold, there's a crime lab van from Ohio. And I walked upstairs, and sure enough, I saw police there, and I met the officer who was the head of the investigation, and they were taking stuff out of his apartment and putting stuff into boxes.
But what this man did, or I guess allegedly did, is so unbelievably foul that it just makes me sick to my stomach to think about, especially when you think about how the kids were so close. I mean, just a few feet away in another room. And speaking of the kids, I said I would circle back to them, and I definitely have a few things that I want to bring up. So, like I mentioned, it's not believed at this point that they saw anything, and let's all hope that that really is the case. But it's possible that they did hear something. Their son obviously isn't old enough to describe any kinds of sounds at 17 months, but their daughter likely is. In that same Anjanette Levy clip that I mentioned earlier, she did say that there are unconfirmed reports that the killer took steps to shield the kids from seeing anything. I don't know if that means he locked them in their room or what, but whether that's true or not, it's possible that the daughter could provide some kind of information or already has. It would be up to the family, of course, if they let her. There are people who specialize in forensically interviewing children. Really tough job, I would imagine, and that would be who they would bring in for something like that. And I'm sure that the decision to let her be interviewed is a really tough one. I don't know what the right answer would be. I mean, she could be potentially able to provide some really valuable information, but at the same time, it's also really traumatizing, and is it worth it? I do trust that their family is going to make the best decision, though. And truly, their whole family has vowed to protect the kids, and they trust that law enforcement is doing everything they can to bring justice to their parents. In a statement following Michael's arrest, they said, quote, "Today's arrest represents an important step towards justice for Monique and Spencer. Nothing can undo the devastating loss of 2 lives taken far too soon, but we are grateful to the City of Columbus Police Department, its investigators, and assisting law enforcement community whose tireless efforts helped to capture the person involved. We thank the community for the continued support, prayers, and compassion shown throughout this tragedy. As the case proceeds, we trust the justice system to hold the person responsible fully accountable. Monique and Spencer remain at the center of our hearts, and we carry forward their love as we surround and protect the 2 children they leave behind. We will continue to honor their lives and the light they brought into this world." And I fully believe that. In fact, they have already started to honor them. A private family service was held on Sunday, January 11th, and it's been said that the focus was on highlighting Spencer and Monique for all of the joy they brought to those around them. This case really has been mind-boggling, and things are changing so quickly every day that new information comes out. And I feel like every time we learn something new, then there are 10 new questions that arise from that. For example, retired FBI agent Jennifer Covendaffer, who you guys might know from my channel and from an interview that I did with her on Mile Higher podcast. She has been interviewed several times as it relates to this case. And I thought this was really interesting. She said that she was looking at Google search trends from before the murders occurred. And apparently, someone was Googling Spencer's name several times on November 30th. Someone was also apparently Googling their home address on December 5th. And at this point, we can't say if that's connected yet, but it is strange. And stuff like that always just leaves me with a ton of questions. And also that clerical error from June of 2025, we know something like that would have sent out notifications to all of the parties involved. So if he's guilty, is it possible that a notification from the court is what set Michael off? That is a scary thought. I'm hopeful and confident that this investigation is going to answer all of those questions, and I just hope that justice comes as quickly as possible. Michael was initially scheduled for his next hearing on January 19th, but that actually got pushed because they weren't going to be able to extradite him in time. And in terms of more information being released, there's definitely a balancing act of sharing information with the public and not damaging the case. And given how little has been shared by law enforcement, I could see them continuing to keep things more on the private side, which